Hey everyone, welcome to Trail Talk. I'm here in our classroom studio today at the Chisholm Trail Heritage Center in Duncan, Oklahoma, and we're so glad that you could join us. We have a lesson today I've called Oklahoma History Heroes. Do you like my psychedelic screen behind me? It's kind of fun. It doesn't look like that here, but it does on your screen probably. But anyway, I'm calling this volume 2. Our first volume was the all women edition that we did with our state senator, Jessica Garvin, if some of you were able to see that. But today we have a mix of some men and some women. And let's just jump in there and get started with it. So the first person we're going to be talking about today is Jim Thorpe. I love to teach students about Jim Thorpe. You know, many of them, they've never heard of him. You know, he's just so far in the past, and he just has such an interesting story. Most of you probably know he was an Olympian, and so I'm going to kind of plug in July. The Summer Olympics are scheduled to be played in Japan. And we have a number of Oklahoma Olympians. And so I'm going to do a couple of trail talks about Oklahoma Olympians. How cool is that? Jim Thorpe will be included in that episode as well. So I'm not going to really get into his Olympic accolades so much, but I will touch on them just a little bit. So he was born May 22nd, 28th of either 1887 or 1888. There's no record, which is not surprising. You know, people didn't keep great records all the time in those days. He's of the Sac and Fox tribe, and that's where he was born, was in the Sac and Fox Nation in Oklahoma prior to the land runs. So he was born in Indian Territory. He was the first Native American to win a gold medal for the United States. He actually won 2 gold medals in the 1912 Olympics in track and field. He was also a professional football player, baseball player, and basketball player. This guy could do everything. He even won a national ballroom dancing competition. I love to throw that one in. So he was really a great athlete. So the scandal was, you know, that he was a semi-professional baseball player for 1 season prior to being in the Olympics. According to the OIC, IOC, the International Olympic Committee, he broke the rules of amateurism for those days. The other side of the scandal, the rest of the story that you may not be aware of, is that those charges were brought against him the following year in 1913, well past the 30-day window that people have to challenge an athlete's success or winning or whatever in an Olympic Games. But it was not until 1982 that a decision was made to reinstate him. And when they did, they made him a co-champion. They allowed the other people to be considered the champions. It's a whole thing. I'll get into it more. Highly, I don't know, problematic in my opinion. At any rate, in 1983, 30 years after his death, the family was given some replica medals, gold medals. But he grew up in the Sac and Fox Nation. He had a twin brother named Charlie who died when they were 9 years old. And then a couple of years later, his mother also died. So Jim was kind of giving his dad a lot of trouble, and he ended up sending him to he sent him off to a boarding school, and eventually he ended up at the Carlisle Indian Industrial School in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, where he was a 2-time All-American under the famed football coach Pop Warner. Following the Olympics, he in 1913, he signed with the New York Giants and played 6 seasons of Major League Baseball between 1913 and 1919. He joined the Canton Bulldogs American football team in 1915 and helped them win 3 professional championships. So from what I'm gathering here, he played professional baseball and professional football at the same time. And then he played as part of several All-American Indian teams throughout his career. And from 1920 to 1921, he was nominally considered the first president of the American Professional Football Association, which became the NFL in 1922. He was there in 20 and 21. And he played professional sports until the age of 41, which, I mean, if you follow professional sports at all, you know that a person is considered finished, usually in their mid-30s. So for him to continue to age 41, just again, reinforces the fact that he was just an outstanding athlete. Sadly, after his sports career ended, the Great Depression came along. He had trouble finding work. He suffered from alcoholism and actually lived his last years in poverty. He was married 3 times and he has 8 children. And then he died in 1953. But he was recognized by the Associated Press as the greatest athlete for the first 50 years of the 20th century. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in the inaugural class, the very first class that was inducted in 1963. There's a town in Pennsylvania named Jim Thorpe in his honor. There's a monument site there to him, and actually that's where his body, his remains are, and there's like been a whole legal thing over that, kind of a crazy story. And he actually went to Hollywood and appeared in several films, but there was a movie made about him called Jim Thorpe All-American. That was made in 1951, and that starred Burt Lancaster as Jim Thorpe. But just what an honor to call Jim Thorpe a native son, one of Oklahoma's history heroes, and just what a great mark he left in the world of athletics. All right, so I'm going to talk to you now about Carl Albert, the little giant. Carl Albert was 5'4" tall. So he was a very small guy, small in stature, but big in heart. I mean, what a dominating force in the political world for our country. He was born in 1908. He was he was born in 1908 in McAlester. And then right after that, shortly after his birth, his family moved to Bug Tussle, big metropolis of Bug Tussle. That's just north of Oklahoma. Anyway, he grew up there, and then he went to the University of Oklahoma in 1927 and majored in political science. He won a national oratorical championship in 1928. And the prize was an all-expense paid trip to Europe. I mean, quite a prize. Then he earned enough money to fund the rest of his undergraduate education by working in the registrar's office at the university. And then he was also in ROTC. So, you know, remember, this is all in the late 20s. He was an amateur wrestler at the school. He was a fraternity member. He was in the all-male spirit club. He graduated Phi Beta Kappa in 1931 and was the top male student of that year. Wow. I mean, what an outstanding college, what a career, you know. Then he attended the University of Oxford as a Rhodes Scholar, another amazing accomplishment. He received Bachelor of Arts in Jurisprudence and a Bachelor of Civil Laws from St. Peter's College, which is part of Oxford, and returned to the U.S. in 1934, opened a law practice in Oklahoma City in 35, and worked for a series of oil companies and leasing work until World War II. He joined the Army as a private in 1941, I'm sure right after Pearl Harbor. That's when a lot of people joined up. He was married to Mary Harmon in August of 1942, just before he was sent out to the South Pacific. And they had 2 children, Mary Frances and David. He was a JAG officer, Judge Advocate General, and he earned a Bronze Star and other decorations and left the Army in 1946 as a lieutenant colonel, but remained in the reserves until 1968 when he retired with the rank of colonel. So, you know, he was really committed to serving his country. And I think that's really evident because of, you know, the path he took, Army, and then eventually into politics. So he was elected to Congress the first time. Hey, Lisa Begay Youngheim, I'm glad you're watching. He was elected to Congress the first time in 1946. And I don't really know what Cold War liberal is, but that's how they have him labeled. He supported some of Harry Truman's ideals, and he was especially supportive of domestic measures like public housing, federal aid to education, and farm price support. So, I mean, those are liberal ideals as far as politics go. Then Speaker of the House, Sam Rayburn, and I was telling Tina, when our daughter lived in Washington, D.C. For a semester, she worked in the Rayburn building. And so it houses a lot of the offices for the members of the House of Representatives. Well, Sam Rayburn, outstanding politician himself, is who the building's named for, but he took an interest in Carl Albert and kind of mentored him along in his early political career, advising him to become chairs of certain committees and to become involved in certain things to probably help his political career become sustainable. You know, it's all about the networking and the connection thing. So anyway, he became the House Majority Whip in 1955 and the House Majority Leader after Sam Rayburn died in 1961. Now, he described himself as a political moderate. He said he very much disliked doctrinaire liberals. They want to own your minds. Now, not my words, okay? These are Carl Albert's words, all right? And I don't like reactionary conservatives. I like to face issues in terms of conditions and not terms of someone's inborn political philosophy. I kind of like the way he says that. He was inducted into the Oklahoma Hall of Fame in 1957. Now, this next part of his story, I thought that I kind of had studied some about Carl Albert, but I think this is very interesting. So the famous 1968 Democratic Convention that was held in Chicago, you know, the same convention that produced the Chicago 7 and just so many riots and chaos and bloodshed. I mean, it was a crazy convention. He was the chair for that convention. I mean, that means he was responsible for what was going on inside the building, not what's going on outside, but still, you know, quite a connection. And he, my papers got out of order here, just a tad bit. Let me see if I can kind of get them back in there. So then when in 1971, 3 years after that, during the second half of Richard Nixon's term of president, first term as president, he became Speaker of the House. And then came Watergate. I'm sure you've all heard of Watergate. That scandal started in 1973. And as Speaker of the House, in the opposing party, President Nixon was a Republican and Carl Albert was a Democrat. Okay, so he referred some 24 impeachment resolutions to the House Judiciary Committee. Now, some of these terms you're probably a little bit familiar with. We've heard these same kinds of terms, these same kinds of activities have gone on recently in our own House of Representatives, Senate, presidential thing that, you know, a few times in recent history. And then during his second term as Speaker and Nixon's second term as President, Vice President Spiro Agnew was investigated for tax evasion and money laundering for a series of bribes he took while he was a governor of Maryland. At any rate, he resigned as Vice President and pled nolo contendere to the charges. That means no contest. He wasn't going to argue about it. This event put Albert next in line to assume the presidency should that office become vacant. Well, we all know that it did become vacant, but some other things happened in the meantime. So under the provisions of the 25th Amendment of the United States Constitution, President Nixon nominated the Republican House Minority Leader, Gerald Ford, to become the new vice president. As the Watergate scandal continued to unfold and the impeachment process began with Nixon, it quickly became apparent that if Nixon resigned or was removed from office before Ford was confirmed by both houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives, that Carl Albert would become the acting president under the Presidential Succession Act of 1947. Now, he would have been forced to resign as Speaker of the House should that have happened, but regardless, he would have become president. Now, this was the first time since the 25th Amendment's ratification that it would have been possible for someone of a different party to assume the presidency. So it was the first time that with a Republican president could have been replaced by a Democrat or vice versa. I mean, wow, what a historical moment. As Speaker of the House, Carl Albert presided over the only body with the authority to impeach Nixon and had the ability to prevent the vice presidential confirmation vote from taking place in the House. So essentially, what this is saying is that he could have manipulated everything that happened in order to make sure he became president. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb, and I mean, I hope that this doesn't make anything controversial, but I honestly do not see a politician of today stepping back and allowing things to play out like they did. I mean, Carl Albert could have done everything possible to make sure the Democrats took over the office of president, but he didn't do that. I mean, I don't know. I didn't know him. I was pretty young at the time. I wasn't really interested in politics in fourth grade. I mean, maybe some of y'all were, but I was not. I just feel like he had a lot of integrity, and rather than force himself into that position, he allowed things to play out as they did. I mean, we could say what if, you know, all day long, but anyway, I just like to think about that as being a sign of integrity in a politician, and just, you know, ponder the thoughts of what would happen if that were the situation today. Wow. At any rate, I'm going to move on because there's more about Carl Albert that we need to know. Anyway, as we all know, Vice President Ford, Gerald Ford was voted, I guess, confirmed to take the office of vice president. Then Nixon resigned, and then Ford became president. The same line of things were still in place that could have allowed Carl Albert to move up, but then Nelson Rockefeller was confirmed to be the new vice president, and so that's how all that finished out. Now, later, well, this is a great honor to mention this part. As an Oklahoma history hero, Carl Albert has held the highest rank of any elected official from the state of Oklahoma. I mean, besides president or vice president, there is no higher office to be held. And so congratulations, Carl Albert. I'm happy to say that. I feel like you did a good job. Toward the end of his career, there was like this scandal where he was accused of accepting gifts and bribes from a lobbyist who was tied to South Korea intelligence, or a member of South Korean intelligence. He denied it. He said he was given small gifts, which he had disclosed, which is, the process that they go through. Elected officials have to disclose gifts that are given to them by people from other countries. There was never any proof that he had actually done anything like that. After he left Washington, he went back to bug tussle. There's no place like home, right? He published a memoir in 1990 called Little Giant, and died in McAlester at the age of 91 on February 4th, 2000. Life well lived, Carl Albert. Nicely done. Okay, now we're going to talk about another famous guy. Now, listen, okay, I know it's a stretch. He was born in Oklahoma, and so we're claiming it. Ron Howard was born right here in Duncan, Oklahoma on March 1st, 1954. His mom was an actress, or at least an aspiring actress. His father was also a director, writer, actor. But his father was in the Air Force at the time of his birth. And so for some reason, they were here in Duncan. I don't know if maybe his dad was out of Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls. That's the closest Air Force base. I'm not sure, but at any rate, he was born right here in Duncan. And then the next year, the family moved to California. He was, of course, a child acting star. We all remember Opie Taylor on the Andy Griffith Show. He was also in The Music Man in 1962. He was one of my favorites, The Courtship of Eddie's Father. If y'all haven't seen that movie, he's just such a cute little guy in that movie. Great job. And of course, then American Graffiti in 1973. And then that kind of launched him into the role of Richie Cunningham on Happy Days. Great show. He left that show in 1980, and that's when he really got into producing, directing, even writing movies. Just some of his most famous, well, probably about everything he's ever done is famous, but I was thinking like Splash, Cocoon. These are the ones that I really remember. Backdraft, Apollo 13, A Beautiful Mind, which is probably his most acclaimed film. Cinderella Man, Frost Nixon, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. He did that, that movie. Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, just on and on. He actually received an Academy Award for Best Director, and Beautiful Mind won for Best Picture in 2001. He's he was awarded the and received an award from the National Medal of Arts, Television Hall of Fame, and he has 2 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, one for television, one for motion pictures. He's married to Cheryl since 1975, and they have 4 children, Bryce, Jocelyn, Paige, and Reed. Anyway, we're proud to claim you, Ron Howard. Thanks for being born in Oklahoma so we can say you're a native son. All right, I got to talk about Reba. Everybody knows Reba McEntire, who I think might also be from Bug Tussle or somewhere. Could Bug Tussle actually produce 2 amazing, I mean, what a thing to say. Wow. If it's not Bug Tussle, it's somewhere close by. She was born in McAllister, just like Carl Albert was. So, you know, who knows? Her father and grandfather, she was born in 1955. She's a year younger than Ron Howard. I don't even know why that was a thing I needed to say, but for some reason I felt like I needed to say it. Her father and grandfather were both steer ropers, and her father was actually a 3-time world champion steer roper, 1957, 1958, and 1961. Her mother was a school teacher, but always kind of wanted to be a country music star. And so she didn't get to pursue that, but she helped her children pursue that. And I mean, wow, she did a great job, didn't she? So Reba reportedly taught herself how to play the guitar, which is totally, you know, that's totally believable. When they would be riding home from rodeos, the kiddos would be singing country music and harmonizing with their mother. She taught them how to do all of that. And eventually they formed a group called the Singing McEntires. No, there were 4. There was Alice, Reba, Paige, and Susie. Alice never performed with the Singing McEntires. That wasn't her thing, but the other 3 performed together, and Reba wrote all the songs and played the guitar for their group. And then they later sang at rodeos and such. In fact, when I was in college, the early 1980s, I went, this was like the mid 80s, later 80s, maybe about the middle of that. I'll say 86-ish, probably. I went to a rodeo in Hinton, Oklahoma, and there was it was outside. I don't know if y'all know Hinton. Hinton's not a very big place. There was an outdoor rodeo, just a little rodeo there. And Reba was supposed to be there. Paige performed most of the songs, but Reba did come out and sing a couple of songs. And so that's my Reba McEntire story at a rodeo. I actually saw her at a rodeo in Hinton, Oklahoma. She recorded the Ballad of John McEntire, and 1,000 copies of the 45 were pressed, but it was not really promoted very much. In 74, she was at Southeastern. Southeastern is in Durant, and she was going to become an elementary school teacher. And but you know, she just loved singing, performing, and so she continued doing that. And she was hired to sing the national anthem at the National Finals Rodeo in Oklahoma City. Well, Red Steagall was there, and he immediately recognized that she had all the talent and then some. And so he convinced her to go to Nashville, and she went ahead. She did graduate from university, but she went ahead and ended up going there and signed a recording contract in 1975 with Mercury Records. She says that, I mean, all the greats have influenced her singing. Bob Wills, Merle Haggard, Dolly Parton, Barbara Mandrell, Patsy Cline. I mean, my goodness, if you love country music, you know those names. She would go to dances when she was in college that were kind of like Oklahoma, Texas border places. So she could dance to Bob Wills music, and said it didn't get any better than dancing to Bob Wills. She had every album Merle Haggard ever made, and her first hit, Sweet Dreams, was a remake of Patsy Cline's version of that song. She's been at the top of country music for 40 years. Reba is always out there. She's never missed a beat. Hey, David, thanks for watching. She's credited with staying. I mean, that's hard to do. It's hard to stay successful and on the forefront when, there are so many other talented musicians, singers, performers out there. And so Reba just really, reading about her, studying her, made me think of the artists who have been on Trail Talk and how they talk about always trying something, musical artists too, trying something different, pushing themselves outside of their little comfort zone so that they can improve their craft. And I just really feel like that's what Reba McEntire has done. She says, whatever I'm doing, I feel like I'm representing country music. So Paik went on and kind of dabbled in music for a while, but he's a rancher in Oklahoma. Susie has a very successful Christian music career. She and her husband travel and perform together. And her sister Alice lives here in Oklahoma as well. Reba's been married a couple of times, and she has a few, I think she has 3 stepchildren, and she considers their children her grandchildren. She's very close with them, even though she's not married to their dad anymore. And she has one son, Shelby Blackstock. And so she has, her personal life, she's had several relationships. There was the tragedy of the plane crash that happened, that about half of her band, maybe even more than half, were killed following a performance in, I think it was in California. And they had 2 planes that all the band members and all their equipment and everything were on. She was not on either of those planes, but one of them crashed, and it was just a devastating time for her. But, Reba she really stayed the course and kind of bounced back from that. She has there's a place called Reba's Ranch House in Denison, Texas. It's kind of like the Ronald McDonald House. And it's a place for rest, meals, nourishment, and just a lot of help for people being treated in the nearby Texoma Medical Center. And then she's also a famous, she's well known for her humanitarian commitments and support. Habitat for Humanity, Salvation Army, American Red Cross, Feeding America. I mean, she's very much into giving, serving, helping others, which, that's probably another reason that she stays in front of, not that she does it for the accolades, to promote herself, but she is a person who gives. And so she's just known for having that kind of spirit in her, and that draws people to you, whenever you're that kind of person, you're just kind of drawn to people like that. And so I have a feeling that her personality, her heart, is part of what makes her beloved by so many. And she got into acting. She was even nominated for a Golden Globe Award for Best Performance by an Actress in a Television Series, Musical or Comedy, for her sitcom Reba. So salute Reba McEntire. Well done. And we are proud to call you one of our history heroes. We're going to talk about one more Oklahoma history hero, Rue McClanahan. Golden Girls, right? You guys automatically think of that when we think of Rue McClanahan. So she was born in Hilton, Oklahoma, which is not that far away from where I am right now, in 1934, and grew up in Ardmore, Oklahoma. That's where she graduated from high school. She won an award. Where's that? Anyway, she won a gold medal for being an orator. She went to the University of Tulsa, and she graduated from there. She was kind of a leader during her college career. She was an animal welfare advocate and a vegetarian, so she had some strong feelings about things, and I think that she really supported animal welfare for a long time. She was in, several movies and other television shows, but she just had such a long career, and she was just a well-loved TV personality. And I don't know, I just think it's fun to remember people like Rue McClanahan, who came from Oklahoma, especially when I talk to students, young people from Oklahoma, and I say, it doesn't matter where you start out your life. I think we can look at all of these people that I've introduced you to or told you some information about today. It doesn't matter where you start, Hilton, Oklahoma, or Indian Territory, you can end up being one of the best known people in the world. Just set goals and really, shoot for the stars, and who knows what can happen. Rue McClanahan, one of her dearest friends was Betty White. And, I just feel like she just surrounded herself with people who would help her become better at what she did. I feel like that's another way people become successful. But all the people that we've talked about today, Jim Thorpe, Carl Albert, Ron Howard, Reba McEntire, Rue McClanahan, all outstanding. I mean, not just outstanding, but like the top of their fields, the best of the best. And Rue McClanahan actually won an Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series for her performance on The Golden Girls. That was in 1987. These people are great Oklahomans. They've been out in the world. People know who they are, and they represent us well. So what do you say, Okies? Let's go out there and represent our state well like they have. Well, guys, that's all I have for you today. I'm going to have an outstanding Oklahoman young woman, Haley Spradlin, on Trail Talk tomorrow. I'm so excited for Haley to come on. She and I have been friends for a very long time, and she left Duncan and has become a very successful businesswoman in Oklahoma City. I can't wait for you to see her art. She's going to do some demos. She's going to teach us a little bit about doing some fun graphic art kind of things. So join us tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Thanks for watching today. And you know what I'm about to tell you. Happy trails.